Hello and welcome into Groomer's Take. We've got Tuesday night, a little later on Tuesday night than usual. Got to get the Tuesday episodes out though, keep it rolling. We're going to try and do a Thursday evening, night, whatever, little pre-NHL trade deadline episode. Whoever the hell's left. There's a lot of guys on the trade bait board. Some have already fallen that we'll get into here. Pardon my hand. But yeah, we'll see. We've got a heck of a time of year right now where the NFL is ramping up free agency. Franchise tags are being thrown out there. Players are being told that they're going to get released. Trades are going down. NBA craziness. So we got a bit of a smorgasbord here of sporting news, and it's kind of all over the place in the notebook, but we're going to get to it all, and we're going to have a great time doing it. Right off the bat, I wanted to talk about Deebo Samuel going to the Washington Commanders. He wanted out. I didn't see it going to Washington, although I love it for Washington. They're a young group with veteran players as well, though, who can get it done. And I think Deebo going there, it doesn't necessarily mean, and nor do I think he would have been the guy there, but he's a complimentary piece. I'm a huge Terry McLaurin fan. Glad he's not in the AFC. But he's an excellent wide receiver, and I'm sure he's helped Jaden Daniels. That team looks pretty good. Deebo can come in maybe even as a third wide receiver, depth kind of thing. He could block, he could run. Not so much a deep threat like he used to, but he has been injury prone. So if we can get the Deebo from 2-3 years ago, Washington's going to look pretty darn good going into next year. And the 49ers, there's no real concern there. But they did go from signing Brendan Ayuk to a huge contract, to him getting hurt, to him possibly being shopped. Now Deebo wanting out. It's kind of crazy there. And I don't want the 49ers to be irrelevant just yet. But that window's closing pretty darn fast. But I like this for the Commanders. I think I wouldn't call them the favorite in the NFC. But they're definitely one of the teams that'll be up there competing for the NFC Championship, and they'll definitely be in probably the NFC Championship game. Probably. We'll stick with football. Get a lot of this football contract talk, trades out of the way. Boy, oh boy, it just keeps going. We got T. Higgins here. T. Higgins gets franchise tagged for the second straight year. I mean, the guy's going to be making just over $25 million a year, which is fantastic. But the thing is with these players, man, they come to a point, no matter when it is really, but the time for them to make their money is going to run out. And T. Higgins, unfortunately, is behind a guy named Jamar Chase in the depth chart. So the Bengals have already come out, as mentioned in previous episodes, where the Bengals are going to be prioritizing Jamar Chase and paying him and giving him lots and lots of money. So to franchise tag T. Higgins, I mean, great. He's a fantastic number 2. Do I think T. Higgins is a number 1 somewhere? It's hard to tell because he's never really gotten that kind of opportunity with Chase being in Cincinnati. I don't think he is a solidified number 1, but the guy deserves to maybe test free agency, you know what I mean? And now he can sit out and everything like that, but do you really want to do that and just throw that money away? I'm not really sure. But the poor guy, he's got to come back. I'd rather him not be in the AFC North, but T. Higgins, franchise tag, second year in a row. Tough. Darius Slay set to be released from the Philadelphia Eagles. This just shows that it's a business first. He's been with the Eagles for a very long time. Now won a Super Bowl. What I have here, $13.7 million. He was getting next year. So 9.5, I think, of that is going to be dead money. So the Eagles saved $4 million But I think the Eagles are young in a lot of different positions, and they wanted to save some money. It just sucks. It's such a cutthroat industry, right? But he'll probably end up somewhere, just won a Super Bowl. I mean, he'll land on his feet, no problem. The Jets are expected to release Davante Adams. They said they look for a trading partner. I don't think they're going to find it at this point. So Davante Adams at the age of 32 is going to be a free agent. And what did Groomer say? He keeps talking about the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. And I feel that opportunity's still there. And if Davante Adams is a free agent, I think he's going to just end up following wherever Rodgers goes. So if you see Rodgers make a decision on his career, whether it's retirement or he signs with a team, expect Davante Adams to be close behind. At this point in his career, he may as well, unless he's solidified to go to a team that has an awesome quarterback that'll get him the ball, and there'll be room for him to get a lot of possessions, a lot of snaps, yada yada, a lot of looks. But telling you, man, Steeler thing, I don't want to. Just saying. Is that it? That's it for the NFL. There's a lot more out there, but we're going to see a lot more heating up next week when free agency hits, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The NFL just loves to make noise, and I'm here for it. Serena Williams. I'm going to talk about Serena Williams just quickly before getting into the NHL news. Serena Williams going to be a part owner in the Toronto Tempos WNBA team next year, or is it next year? Whenever it happens. It's cool. If you're a new franchise in any league, you want Serena to be involved, an advocate, an ambassador, and it works. And I'm excited for it, and bringing more sports to Toronto. It's only a good thing. NHL time. Okay, so like I mentioned, we're gonna have some crazy fun this week. Usually the NHL jumps ahead of the deadline, and then the deadline actually ends up being boring. So on that Thursday episode, hopefully if there's not as many guys left to talk about, well, at least we're going to have trades to talk about. But it's different now, right? It's not about just trading players and assets. You got to make the money work, and it's unfortunate because it's not as fun to talk about. But Jake Evans is one of those guys that was on the trade bait board, and a lot of teams were talking about him. This guy is a perfect third-line, fourth-line centerman. He'll get you 35 to 45 points. He's good in the face-off circle. He takes the body, over 100 hits already this year. But he's staying in Montreal for 4 years. He's going to be 29 in June. And Montreal is in a playoff spot right now, or pretty close. But if you're Montreal and you're sitting there and you're thinking we could be in the playoffs in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe this year, maybe next year, Jake Evans is a guy that I would want in that bottom six to help us get there. Absolutely, I love this, and it's a bit of a raise for the kid. Just over 2.2 range per year. Attaboy. Seth Jones to Florida. So this is what I was going to lead off with. Kind of trying to figure this one out. I thought it was a bit weird. Seth Jones wanted out. There's money retained in certain places. He wanted out of Chicago. The surprising part to me on this is that Florida decided, and maybe this was what Chicago needed. They said, well, if this is going to get done, we want Spencer Knight, goaltender Spencer Knight. They also get a first-round pick, and maybe there was something else, don't quite remember. But Spencer Knight gets a nice start. He seems like he's going to be a pretty good goalie. He had a fantastic game in his opener against the Kings. But you're a young kid. You go to a growing team. Assets came in for Chicago. It's huge. So then I look at the Seth Jones part of it, going to Florida, and all I really think here is that it's not quite the Brandon Montour hole that they filled, but it's a little bit of it, right? I think Brandon Montour is more of a heavier guy. He had a fantastic offensive year last year. I think Seth Jones has that bit of a higher ceiling when it comes to offensive prowess. So So maybe that's the whole field there. It does make me question what Florida might do with Aaron Ekblad moving forward, a guy that's been there his entire career. But if Seth Jones can find what he had, let's like in Columbus when he was there, then Florida's looking really good. And we'll stick with Florida on that note, and because what was it? Matthew Tkachuk on the LTIR, his lower body. I think they might have said a bit of a groin issue there, but LTIR, which means right out until at least the playoffs. We're seeing that a lot in the NHL these days, where what's the point in coming back 10 days before the NHL season's over when we can just keep you on the bench, up in the press box, come back for the playoffs. We get to take your money and use it at the deadline. I think it's around 8.5, 8.7, something like that the Florida Panthers can now use at the deadline, and you bet they are going to use it. Can't remember where I was going to go from here. Oh, yeah. So there's a bit of a hole now. Backup goalie for Florida. They called up Chris Driedger. Okay numbers, not great. I think Florida might make a move for a goalie. And I'm looking at Peter Mrazek. Don't want to take away too much from the Thursday episode, but I think Peter Mrazek now makes his money. I think he's maybe 1 year after this, could be a free agent, but gets traded to a team that needs a backup goalie. Because if Bobrovsky gets hurt and he's already 37 years old, you're going to trust Driedger. I don't think that's going to work. I expect Florida to make some sort of move, but my guy right now would be Mrazek without looking at the trade bait board, and we'll see what happens there. One more little thing on NHL news is just the Wild acquiring Gustav Nyquist. Nashville Predators have been terrible this year. I have no idea what they're going to look like. I don't think they're going to be able to trade too many of those contracts, but Nyquist, I mean, he can be a 25-25 guy. Goes to a Wild team that just kind of figures it out up on the forward units, and Nyquist can fit in anywhere, I guess, right? Third line, second line wing, secondary power play. So that's a decent ad for them. And lastly, I'm just going to get out of here on something that I never really like talking about, but this year we've seen this player mature and kind of just play the game, and you haven't heard too much about him. So when you don't hear too much about him, it usually means he's just playing basketball, and that's Kyrie Irving. Tore his ACL last night. He'll be out the rest of the season. What a crappy turnaround for the Dallas Mavericks. They had enough of Doncic. They trade him. They bring in Street Clothes. Street Clothes is hurt. Now Kyrie's hurt. I think this is bye-bye playoffs for sure. Even with Doncic there, like, they would have battled to get in. But this is just bad news for Dallas, and hell of a last couple weeks to a month here. So it's too bad. Really too bad for them, and too bad for Kyrie, because he's a fantastic player, and he hasn't been running his mouth. He's been out of the news. I mean, I don't know much about basketball, but I know what I hear, and just feel bad for the guy. All right, so Thursday, hopefully we get a lot of trades, a lot to break down. Unfortunately, we'll have to bring out the whiteboard and look at the Toronto Maple Leafs situation, although it's a money in, money out thing. I hate that term. That term sucks. And we'll see what they do, whether it's a center, a defenseman, whatever it's going to be. But trade deadline, always a great time of year. Used to be a lot better, but we'll see what kind of news we get. We'll see what kind of trades we get, and hopefully there'll be a lot of things to break down on Groomer's Take. Have a great night, great day. Talk to you in a couple days. Groomer's Take. See ya. Bye.